When Vincent came back from Norway, he asked for a divorce. I knew he wasn't on a business trip. He had gone to see the aurora borealis with his unforgettable first love. His unforgettable first love was pregnant. He knelt by my legs, groaning like a beast in pain. Julianna, let's get a divorce. I stroked my belly, tears streaming down my face. Later, the unforgettable first love lost the baby. I aborted Vincent's child. Lou's mother fainted at my door, crying, "Heaven is blind. The Lou family line is ending." Later, Vincent said, "Julianna, I love you, but I can no longer give you happiness." Chapter 1. Vincent and I started from a one-night stand. That night, the moonlight was charming, and the alcohol was heady. We tangled in the top-floor suite of the Legion Hotel. When we woke up, neither of us left early, nor did we pretend to be indifferent. He got up, pulled the heavy curtains closed, and went back to sleep. Holding me, I hooked my leg around his waist. That was my favorite sleeping position. Unexpectedly, it ignited his fire. That was the beginning of us. Chapter 12. Vincent was very busy, rarely seen even a few days a month. I spent more time with my period than with him. But strangely, he always managed to avoid my period precisely. So much so that Faith asked me, "Does your husband make you brown sugar water during your period?" Such a question was hard to answer. If I denied it, it meant he never encountered my period. If I admitted it, it meant he never took care of me during my period. It was hard to handle, but I didn't mind. Men should be busy. I wouldn't be able to stand it if he was panting in front of me every day. After our one-night stand, he disappeared for a while. When he reappeared, he asked me to go to the Civil Affairs Bureau with him. I looked at him in surprise. "How many times have you been married?" "First time." His thin lips slightly parted, expressionless. I pondered. "You must be out of your mind. If every one-night stand had to end in marriage, the Civil Affairs Bureau's threshold would be worn out." "Julianna, I'm serious. I am sensitive by nature, adept at depicting my shape in the eyes of others." On the way to the Civil Affairs Bureau, he freed a hand to hold my left hand, his fingertips gently stroking my palm. "Don't be nervous." His voice was low and charming. I stiffened my neck, trying to bolster my courage. "I'm not nervous." He looked at me and smiled. Oh, but it was a doubtful tone. He didn't believe it. Chapter 3. I was incredulous, feeling as if I were in a dream from the moment we met again. 10 years ago, I admired him. Back then, he was the school heartthrob, not yet the dashing man in a well-tailored suit. I was cornered in the restroom by a few notorious school bullies. They wanted to strip me and take photos. It was class time, and there was no one around. In my moment of despair, Vincent appeared like a god descending from the heavens and rescued me. Since then, I began to watch him silently. But a year later, he went abroad. Leaving with him was the school belle, Jasmine. Rumor had it that the handsome boy and beautiful girl were childhood sweethearts, and they flew to America to live their prince and princess fairy tale. When I saw him again, he was single, sent from the overseas headquarters to oversee the work as a vice president. That day, I was at the Lawson on the first floor of the building buying buns, and Faith tugged at my sleeve, her heart fluttering. "Julie, there's a handsome guy, a really handsome guy." Following her gaze, I only saw a disappearing figure. Faith said excitedly, "I want to know which company he is an executive of." "How do you know he's an executive? Have you ever seen a struggling worker with a secretary?" "He's just a high-level worker then." Vincent became my boss. I looked at the nameplate on his office door and suddenly came to my senses. 10 years had passed, and I never thought we'd meet again. Chapter 4. The women in the company began to get restless, with one after another touching up their makeup in front of the restroom mirror. Everyone was saying he was a diamond-level super bachelor, handsome, wealthy, and with a powerful background. Even Faith was interested, but it only lasted for 2 days. She discovered a photo of Vincent tucked inside my phone case. She always said, "Men are like clothes, but sisters are like hands and feet." Before, I had always shown no interest in love, so she didn't mind. But upon discovering that I had someone I loved, and that it was her newly infatuated cold-faced boss, She resolutely gave up on that unfulfilled crush and instead became my advisor. Julie, you hid this well, didn't you? I didn't hide it at all. If you didn't hide it, why carry his photo around? It's a long story. That photo is actually half of a picture. I had cut out the female lead. On the day of the school sports meet, the class teacher asked me to bring a camera to school to take some pictures for the school magazine. When I passed through a secluded grove, I saw Vincent. He was reclining against an osmanthus tree, resting with his eyes closed, his long eyelashes casting a shadow on his eyelids. He was wearing a white school uniform, with 2 buttons undone, revealing a clear collarbone. As I gazed at him, my hands seemed to move on their own, quickly pressing the shutter. At that moment, a girl rolled out from behind the tree and entered the frame. She covered the boy's eyes with her hands, laughing like silver bells. "Guess who I am?" The boy's lips curved slightly, and he indulgently pulled down her hands. For many years after, I recalled that moment, wondering if those thin lips had kissed her palm. Such a scene entered my dreams, where in my dreams, colorful clouds danced at my cheeks, and my palms were burning hot. I became the female lead in that scene. Chapter 5. Jasmine returned to the country and was added to the alumni group by the group leader. The men in the group were excited. "School bell? It's me! I'll be back as soon as I finish dealing with things here. The school bell is coming back. Where's the group leader? It's time to organize a reunion." "Agree." Everyone echoed in agreement. Then, Jasmine added a newcomer. "Vincent." I remember when I had just gotten married. I was playing with my phone on the sofa. Messages kept popping up one after another. He put down his documents and asked me, "Who is so free?" His expression was unpleasant. I thought he was jealous, feeling a bit happy inside, and ran over to sit on his lap. I spread the phone in front of him. "It's just the classmates group. It's almost the holiday, so the group is getting active." He glanced at it indifferently, put it on mute. "It's annoying." So he was just annoyed by the noise. I gloomily put my phone on mute. Someone in the group started talking about campus anecdotes, mentioning Vincent. Someone heard he had returned to the country but lacked his contact information. "You have to ask Jasmine." That's right, where Jasmine is. Vincent must be too. I was a bit angry when I read those 2 lines. On impulse, I added Vincent to the group, but he didn't join the group nor explained a word to me, not even saying, "I find it annoying. I don't want to join." After that group invitation, I didn't speak to him proactively for half a month. After he became my husband from my boss, I would care about him daily. "Have you eaten? Have you slept?" When I didn't contact him, he didn't care. Still going to work and on business trips, rarely coming home. Now it seems it's not that he didn't want to join the group. It depends on who invites him. I guess if Jasmine asked him to eat stinky tofu, he might frown but would still obediently open his mouth. Vincent joined the group. The women in the group became active. "Today is really a good day. Welcome. The school bell and the school hunk. Your kids must be quite big now. Maybe even 3 kids by now." Thousands of group messages kept refreshing. People kept talking, but the parties involved never came out to clarify. I angrily threw away my phone. Out of sight, out of mind. Chapter 6. Vincent came home that night. He was reeking of alcohol, his eyes blurry, clearly having drunk a lot. Wife, help me. I'm about to fall." Hearing him call wife, my anger dissipated, and I got up cheerfully. His 183-meter height leaned on my 166-meter frame, almost bending me. The strong smell of alcohol mixed with a strange perfume filled my nose. His big hand touched my face, slowly moving downward. I went limp, and we both fell onto the carpet. The pure cashmere carpet imported from Italy felt soft and comfortable. When awake, he and I seemed to be people from 2 different worlds, only syncing in certain areas like conjoined twins. I woke up in bed, lazily stretching out, my arm touching a warm object. "Ah!" I jumped up in fright. Vincent looked at me like I was an idiot. "Why are you so startled?" Feeling a bit chilly and realizing I wasn't wearing anything, I quickly grabbed the quilt to cover myself. Now Vincent was also naked, his eyes flashing with desire as he flipped over and pinned me down. Just like that. After another round of sparring, I woke up again to find the sun had set. The place next to me was empty, and my mood dropped. At this time of day, I always felt the saddest. Sunset glow. Alone. Waking up from a dream, I lay on my knees looking out the window when there was a noise at the door. Vincent walked in wearing home clothes, carrying a bowl of porridge. My mood soared like a roller coaster from the bottom to the top. You didn't leave. This is my home. Where would I go? You're so busy. Never around. My voice grew lower and lower, finally swallowed by a mouthful of porridge. He sat on the bed, feeding me porridge. I added dried shrimp and pork floss. I drank it one sip after another. He said, I have a business trip tomorrow. This time, it'll take a while. Where to? Norway. 3 days later, I, on a whim, clicked on Jasmine's profile. We weren't friends on WeChat, so I could only see her 10 status updates. The first one was a 9-grid picture located in Finland, and in the middle of the picture, one of the hands holding hers was very familiar. There was a small mole on the ring finger of his left hand, perfectly covered by the wedding ring. I zoomed in as much as I could and vaguely saw the imprint left by the ring. Feeling extremely bitter and anxious. The room was warm, but I sat on the newly changed carpet, feeling icy cold. He was rarely gentle before he left that day. The hallway carpet can't be used anymore. It needs to be changed. See if there's any style you like. Pick one, and send it to me. I was very happy. Especially happy. From the beginning until now, everything in this house was decided by him. Never asking for my preferences or seeking my opinion. Sometimes I would sulk, but he couldn't sense it. His attitude made me feel like this was just his home, and I was merely a temporary resident. Looking at it now, it seems my days here are numbered. Chapter 7. I discovered that my husband was cheating, but this didn't decrease my appetite. Instead, I have become ravenous. Faith noticed me devouring 3 hamburgers and still complaining about being hungry. She looked me up and down and exclaimed, Julie, you have a pregnancy glow. What's a pregnancy glow? I asked, munching on fries, my mind wandering to Vincent. He was probably holding Jasmine while watching the Norwegian snow. Faith snatched my fries. You're pregnant. I was taken aback. I had never considered the possibility of pregnancy. Vincent and I had always used contraception. Despite countless moments of passion, he would always remember to use protection. We weren't young anymore, and I had always wanted a child, but I never dared to bring it up. I was afraid he would look at me with that indifferent gaze and reject me without any excuse. Impossible, I said firmly. Faith was puzzled. Why impossible? You two are married. Having a baby is normal. Seeing my certainty, she seemed to guess something and didn't press further. She stuffed the fries back into my mouth. I usually had a small appetite and didn't like sour foods, yet I was eating sour plums. That weekend, I went to the hospital alone. When I got the test results, I didn't know whether to feel relieved or troubled. I was pregnant, but my husband seemed to be rekindling his relationship with his old flame. Vincent rarely contacted me during his business trips. After much hesitation, I sent him a text message. I have something important to tell you. I might be pregnant. I anxiously waited for his reply from dusk till dawn, my heart growing cold, filled with despair in this large house. He didn't reply, not even a simple aborted. I clicked on Jasmine's profile. She had updated it 2 minutes ago. The caption read, Do happy things with the one you love. Don't ask if it's fate or calamity. The photo was of her and Vincent, looking intimate and natural, with a brilliant aurora in the background. I remembered Vincent once said he liked watching the aurora. He mentioned it many years ago when I walked past him talking to another boy on the school playground. I had remembered that for a long time. When we first got married, I made many plans, intending to surprise him with a romantic Arctic trip. But when I suggested it, his evasive eyes made me realize that some efforts seemed ridiculous. Those plans went up in flames, and I gave up the idea of traveling with him. He went to see the aurora every winter. He didn't say, and I pretended not to know. I thought men had things they wanted to do alone, and as a partner, I should give him enough space. Faith sent me a dozen messages on WeChat. which I neither read nor replied to. She then called me. Julie, your husband has another woman. Vincent, rarely seen, posted on his moments. I clicked on it. He hadn't blocked me. After all this time, you're still here. What a cheesy line. Coming from him. The most romantic thing I've heard from him in recent years was "don't be nervous" during his proposal. It turns out he could say such things, but only to others, not me. I entered his study. There was a locked drawer under his desk. I found a hairpin, turned it twice, and unlocked it. I had learned this unspeakable skill at a young age. It wasn't hard to learn but seldom useful. Now, it finally came in handy. Inside the drawer were all his favorite things. Lots of auroras and Jasmine. Those photos also had him in them. But he looked expressionless, seemingly unhappy. It turned out every year's aurora trip included Jasmine, even after she had married someone else. What a pair of adulterers. Chapter 8. Someone in the alumni group posted a photo. The photo was taken from a distance and was blurry, but Jasmine's beautiful face stood out. Even against the poor resolution, she stood outside a clinic, her right hand resting on her belly, which was slightly rounded, indicating she was about 4 months pregnant. I had to admit, Jasmine's beauty was indeed striking. Even with a baby bump, some people still wanted to meet her and pursue her. My friend took this photo at a hospital in Finland. Isn't this our school belle? Beauty knows no boundaries. Is the school belle pregnant? When did she get married without informing her old classmates? Could it be with Lou? I saw them shopping together at the World Trade Center last month. Just imagine how beautiful their child will be. I lay in bed, scrolling through my phone. I was waiting for Vincent's reply, but he was nowhere to be seen, and neither was Jasmine. I leaned against the headboard, surprisingly calm. Faith called incessantly. Julie, I heard your husband applied to transfer back to headquarters. Are you going with him? My throat was so dry that I couldn't utter a single sound. Julie, are you listening? Faith, I'm really confused right now. Please don't ask me. She sensed something was wrong and told me not to overthink before hanging up. Since the day he left home, I hadn't changed the bedding. His unique scent was slowly fading away. My baby bump was still not visible, but my cheeks had grown thinner. I went to the old house to visit Lou's mother. She still treated me with the same indifference as if I were a stranger. 2 years ago, she returned from the US and moved into the old Lou family house. Julianna, you're not getting any younger. It's time to extend the Lou family lineage. The Lou family doesn't keep idle people. She was tending to the flowers and didn't look at me as she spoke. Vincent is an only child, carrying the family's mission. I was against your marriage in the first place. You seemed proper but turned out to be quite calculating. 7 years ago, the Lou family was heavily in debt and declared bankruptcy. Lou's father committed suicide, and Lou's mother went insane, leaving Vincent to handle everything. Vincent never talked about those times, not even when drunk. I couldn't imagine how, in his early 20s, he experienced such a fall from grace. When I saw him years later, the once sunny boy had become somber, as unfathomable as a deep pool. I didn't resent him for everything with Jasmine. My time with him felt like stolen moments. Long ago, my wish was simply to be close to him, hoping that one time, when he shot a basketball, it would accidentally hit me. Marrying him was more than I had ever dreamed. Lou's mother always said, Jazz is the daughter-in-law I always wanted. Why did Jazz leave my Vincent? Whenever she thought of Vincent and Jazz, her madness resurfaced. In Lou's mother's memories, after Vincent lost everything, Jasmine married someone else, and her Vincent chose to end his life that Christmas. Suffering for love and dying for love were things I always looked down upon. But since it was Vincent, he was the rare, true romantic in the world. Chapter 9. 2 months later, in the middle of the night, Vincent returned. He wore a thin trench coat and stood by the bed, looking at me with sorrowful eyes. For a moment, I felt as if my infidelity had hurt this deeply affectionate man. You're back. I propped myself up, intending to turn on the bedside lamp. He pressed my hand down, his touch chillingly cold. Don't turn on the light. I sat up, using the moonlight to see his face. Julianna, let's get a divorce. His hoarse voice exploded in my ears. even though I had prepared for this. When it actually happened, the pain was overwhelming. The little one in my belly kicked. As if knowing something and strongly objecting, Vincent half knelt by the bed. I stroked his stiff, short hair and murmured, "Can we not divorce? They say people with stiff hair are stubborn and unyielding. Vincent's decisions are always final. The only time he changed was when he came back from the brink of death, choosing a path of life, giving me a chance to share some time with him. I didn't know the reason for that change, but I guess it was for his unforgettable first love. Now, it seems he has finally waited for Jasmine to become single again. As long as I agree to the divorce, these two lovebirds, torn apart by fate, can be together again. I'm pregnant. I sent you a message over a month ago. I waited a whole day and night, but you never replied. I guess you didn't receive it or intentionally ignored it. Now that I'm telling you again, it probably won't change your mind. So, do you still want a divorce?" The heartache mixed with tears left me feeling lost. He looked at me in disbelief, the hesitation in his eyes hurting me. "Impossible." "Yes. I also think it's impossible. You took such careful precautions. How did it happen? Maybe it's someone else's?" I didn't know what I was saying, recklessly ruining my own reputation. "Don't say that." "So, do you still insist on the divorce?" Chapter 10. I'm sorry, Julianna. Vincent turned and left, taking with him my last bit of hope. The next day, his secretary brought the divorce papers to the house. I glanced through the terms briefly. Your boss is really generous." The secretary remained silent, looking at me for a long time before speaking. "Mr. Liu has his reasons. Men always think they're great, bearing everything silently. Mr. Liu, forget it. Set a time for tomorrow. We'll go to the Civil Affairs Bureau for the divorce. He has to sign in person, right?" The secretary, having completed his task, left without wanting to stay a moment longer, leaving behind a set of keys. "All the keys to this house are here, and Mr. Liu's personal belongings. I'll pack them up and mail them to him." Mr. Liu said, "You can handle them as you see fit." I leaned back on the sofa as Faith's call came through. "Your husband brought a woman to the office today. She was very agitated, making me feel as if she were the one being betrayed. Let me guess, is that woman very pretty, with long straight black hair, speaking in a sweet voice, and always smiling at people? Do you even need to guess? Aren't all bad women like that? Come over to my place. I need company." She hung up and rushed over, giving me a big hug as soon as she arrived. "I'm pregnant." Faith sprang up. Adulterers! Adulterers! Should I keep it? Being a single mom isn't easy. Vincent gave me 2 properties, 10 shops on Shueisho Street, and about 5% of the shares. Faith's eyes widened, her mouth slowly opening as she processed my words. "Damn, if I had known, I wouldn't have let you have Mr. Liu back then. Who knew I missed out on all this?" Chapter 11. Vincent was very busy, so I called his secretary to arrange a time for our divorce. The secretary sounded constipated, never able to set a definite time. As Faith said, I hadn't lost anything in this marriage, so why should I act like a discarded wife? I dressed up and attended the alumni gathering. Jasmine was still the center of attention, looking fuller and a bit weary despite the makeup. "School bell bye. You look well. When's the baby's 1-month celebration? Don't forget to invite us for a drink." Jasmine's smile didn't reach her eyes as she raised her glass to hide her embarrassment. "Not pregnant. Where did that false rumor come from?" "But my friend said." "Jazz, I'm here to pick you up." Vincent, who had been missing for a long time, suddenly appeared at the gathering, so he wasn't too busy to show up. His eyes swept to the corner where I stood, his pupils dark as ink. He was about to speak when Jasmine grabbed his right hand. "I'm a bit tired. Vincent, let's say goodbye to the classmates and leave." The long-lost classmates weren't about to let them go that easily, surrounding them with endless questions. I leaned against the window, sipping champagne. The male classmate next to me, whose name I forgot, had been chattering in my ear since I arrived. "Julianna, you've become so much prettier. I almost didn't recognize you." I used to have a crush on you and wrote you lots of letters. You never responded. He noticed my gaze on the couple not far away. You still like Vincent. Huh? Not to discourage you, but even though I like you, you don't stand a chance against Jasmine. He was full of himself. I'm really something. My annual salary is already 100,000 yuan. And I can get promoted by the end of the year. My boss said he'd raise my pay to 1 million within 2 years. You wouldn't lose out with me. I'd treat you well. This classmate wasn't tall, but he had a big mouth. Swallowing the promises his boss fed him whole. I raised my glass and drank it all in one go. The man in the distance frowned slightly and started walking toward me. He easily took the glass from my hand, his voice steady and authoritative. You shouldn't drink. A wave of murmurs rose around us. Who is this woman? She looks unfamiliar. Vincent seems to know her well. Jasmine walked gracefully toward me, extending her delicate white hand. Long time no see. The short man next to me was flattered, extending both hands to shake Jasmine's. Sigh. He wasn't the lovesick fool who adored me for years. Some men know their limits, only going after what they can attain. Those goddesses in the sky, they only dare to occasionally dream about them. Chapter 12. Don't worry. I've already aborted the baby. Vincent looked furious, like a storm was about to break. But with the woman he loved by his side, he couldn't explode. People around us obviously heard our conversation. I said calmly, this classmate here, you're young and promising, but I'm already married. The man's hands fidgeted awkwardly, and he habitually scratched his head, accidentally pulling off his wig. His face turned beet red, looking at the goddess he admired, feeling utterly ashamed. But I'm in the process of getting a divorce. If you want to wait, it's not entirely out of the question. Julianna. Vincent was clearly angry, pulling me out of the restaurant. I stumbled after him, leaving the murmurs behind us. Chapter 13. Is the baby really gone? Vincent sat in the driver's seat, gripping the steering wheel tightly. His fingers strained, veins bulging. I sneered and said, Vincent, I didn't hide anything from you, nor would I secretly have an abortion. You are the father of the child. You had the right to know about its existence. It was you who didn't want it. Now, what? Pretending to be in pain to mourn your child? He buried his head in the steering wheel. I never planned to have children. You mean you never planned to have my child? He looked up at me, with an undisguisable depth of feeling. Julianna, believe it or not, I do love you. I only started to believe in his deep feelings after deciding to divorce him. If he didn't love me, how could he be so generous? He almost gave me all his assets. I wonder if Jasmine would die of anger if she found out. Perhaps he did love me, but he also loved Jasmine. Maybe even more than he loved me. So why should I torment myself over this impure love? It's unnecessary and not worth it. Chapter 14. The day we got the divorce certificate, I took Faith to a high-end club. For the first time, I experienced the joy of being a wealthy woman. Faith pointed at a row of male models in front of us, laughing mischievously. Since we're here, can I have two? I also want to experience the peak of life with one in each arm. I waved my hand grandly, keeping them all. The ladies in the next room weren't happy about it, and one of the regular patrons of a young man barged in. 5 well-maintained women in their 60s pushed open the private room door. The club's lighting was dim and suggestive, and I had drunk some whiskey. Only then did I recognize a vaguely familiar woman among the wealthy ladies. Julianna, what are you doing here? Lou's mother, all dolled up with bright red lips, looked like she had just eaten a child. She was starkly different from her usually plain appearance. I instinctively straightened my back and stood up. The word mom was about to leave my lips when she slapped my head to the side. My son works hard while you're out here fooling around. Faith intervened. Julianna and your son are divorced. You have no right to control her. Lou's mother glared angrily. Impossible. My son didn't tell me. You loose woman, playing around with men outside. What kind of upbringing do you have? And you're here too. I smirked. Drink tea? She was so furious she was hopping mad, calling me names but unable to form a complete sentence. An older gigolo caught on, calling her good sister while soothing her with his soft, pale hands. She cared about her reputation, and now she wanted to find a hole to crawl into. Seeing her face turn red, I quickly called for her old friends to get her medicine box. Chapter 15. An older woman rushed in, hurriedly pulling up a red-lipped, wavy-haired young woman. "Your husband is here looking for you. Hide quickly." The young woman's face turned pale, and she darted around in panic. Where should I hide? This private room was fully visible, barely enough to hide a small dog. Before anyone could react, the door was shoved open by a tattooed bald man, with a cigarette dangling from his lips. He was built like a bear and looked as fierce as a tiger. "You whore! Using my money to play with men." I felt offended by this man's words and wanted to drag Faith and run, but a hand grabbed the corner of my clothes. "You're not leaving until you explain everything." Lou's mother, her love for her son surpassing her own life. The bald man brought a group of lackeys. When they saw the flamboyantly dressed gigolos, they were furious and didn't hold back their punches. They muttered, "Dare to mess with our sister-in-law? You're dead." Who was bullying whom? Life as a worker was truly hard. In the latter half of the night, our group was packed into a police car and taken to the station. Vincent, with a murderous air, pushed open the door to the station, through the iron bars. He glared at me fiercely, then looked at Lou's mother, who kept her head down. He turned to the on-duty officer, signing and paying the fines. The young officer couldn't hold back his laughter. Remembering his professionalism, he stifled it with a twisted face. As we walked out of the station, Vincent called for the driver to take Lou's mother away. Faith had already made her escape. I was left alone, standing in the wind, being scolded by Vincent, going out to play with men, and you ended up at the police station. Julianna, I never knew you had this in you. Have I given you too much money, and you have nowhere to spend it? Answer me. I stared at his shadow under the street lamp, tall and slender. Your mom was there too. Chapter 16. Faith asked me, "Did your ex-husband eat dynamite? Isn't he supposed to be all lovey-dovey with his unforgettable first love?" His face was pitch black. I drove the newly bought, seductive pink Porsche to the office building. Faith looked at me in disbelief. "Julie, you've gone mad. Even if you have money, don't spend it like this." I took off my sunglasses, gave her a flirtatious wink. "It's not that much. Get in the car." Through the glass doors, I seemed to see Jasmine. She looked at me, gritting her teeth, and rightfully so. Vincent didn't have to give me all that money. If he hadn't, everything I had now would be hers. Who would dislike having more money? Moreover, Vincent's actions had undoubtedly planted a seed of doubt in her heart. Everyone at the company is saying that after your ex-husband went to Finland, his temper has become very irritable. I looked at Faith's gossip-filled face and said, "What does that have to do with me?" "They say he keeps visiting urology clinics, even those sketchy ones. My driving skills are average." And upon hearing this explosive news, I got excited, lost focus, and ran a red light. A traffic cop caught me on the spot. "Miss, your driver's license, please." I reached into the car's storage compartment, pulled it out, and handed it to him. Faith pushed me aside, her face full of smiles. "Officer Sue, what a coincidence." My friend didn't mean it. She just heard some good news and got distracted. Officer Sue's face remained serious as he wrote the ticket, glancing at me occasionally. What news could be that good? Her scumbag ex-husband is impotent. Oh, that's certainly exciting news. But even so, you must drive carefully. He handed me the ticket and walked away. "So handsome. He's my new neighbor. I'll introduce you someday." "So, Vincent is impotent?" Faith had a mischievous smile. "That's what the office girls guess. They used to think he was rich and handsome, dreaming of marrying him. Now that Jasmine shows up at the company every day, they're sick of it. Why does she go to the company? What else? Pressuring him to marry her. It's said your ex-mother-in-law disapproves and has been bedridden for a month. I think this unforgettable first love is really relentless. What can they do at night? Cover themselves with a blanket and reminisce about the past?" Chapter 17. When Lou's mother was waiting for me at the door, I realized that sometimes office gossip isn't entirely baseless. She stared at my belly, desperation mixed with hope. Julianna, my grandson is still there, right? I opened the door and took out the termination of pregnancy report from under the potted plant by the entrance, handing it to her. Your son has already divorced me, and I don't want to be a single mother, so I made this decision. She tore the thin paper to shreds, glaring at me fiercely. You cruel woman. Even a tigress doesn't eat her own cubs. You actually had an abortion. I was already tired, so I picked up the phone and called Vincent. Vincent arrived quickly, unshaven, and his shirt looked torn. He took Lou's mother and started to lead her outside. His eyes glanced at the shredded paper on the floor. His gaze shattered, his voice hoarse as if he hadn't spoken in a long time. I sat on the sofa, barefoot on the wool carpet, looking indifferent. He left with Lou's mother. I thought my life would calm down after that. I hadn't changed the lock on the door, not because I forgot, but because I thought with Jasmine by his side, he would want to be with her all the time and never step foot here again. I walked out wrapped in a towel. He was sitting quietly in the dark. My slight nearsightedness made me think a stranger had entered, and my heart leaped into my throat. I was about to call out when familiar hands grabbed my waist. My startled cry was swallowed by a fierce kiss. Chapter 18. Wife. The foul smell of alcohol spread over my neck, dirtying my freshly washed body. I tried to push him away, but it was useless. I was half embraced by him like this. He never, when sober, got intimate with me or called me wife. It was always after several drinks, half dreaming, half awake. Faith said that after seeing Jasmine, she understood why I lost to her. Jasmine and I had similar figures, both fair-skinned, with long necks, like proud swans. Vincent was obsessed with my neck, liking to leave marks on it, sometimes with a hoarse, resentful voice. I thought it was a romantic game, but now I see his love for Jasmine was filled with hate. I was the one bearing the hateful part. When he said I'm sorry to me, I had already let go of the initial feeling of liking him, and placed my purest crush in a corner. It was a memory of my youth, unrelated to the pure boy I once knew, and even less to the irresponsible ex-husband. Wife, let's go see the aurora. What a ridiculous proposal. His phone screen lit up. Jazz's name appeared, and he frowned, wanting to hang up. I grabbed it and answered the call. The drunken man instantly sobered up, standing up to try and snatch it back. In the chaos, I was pressed onto the wool carpet. My memory flashed back to the night before his business trip. That night of lingering love, which would never happen again. A sobbing voice came from the other end of the phone. Vincent, where are you? It's so dark. I'm so scared. Jasmine's voice was as soft as ever, making people want to protect her. What's wrong? Didn't you pay your electric bill? Everything is paid online now. It's very convenient, I said to the man in front of me. His face turned red, as if he was enduring something. Julianna, why is Vincent's phone with you? You too. We didn't do anything. Don't worry. Your Vincent will always be yours, I said with a sigh. The man on top of me was too heavy. I tried to push him away, but he held me down, his body burning. I was surprised. Faith's information was wrong, obviously. Vincent was also stunned, his brows furrowed tightly. How is that possible? Chapter 19. After Vincent left, I quickly called a locksmith. He was too dangerous. He somehow managed to become a man again. I had no great expectations for marriage, but after marrying him, I began to have some extravagant hopes. I hoped we could respect each other and grow old together. Of course, reality hit me hard. I didn't want the child. Not to retaliate against Vincent, nor because the child had any congenital defects. I thought a lot while lying on the operating table. Surviving is a choice, but facing reality is a pain, especially growing up in a family structure that society disapproves of. I had enough of other sarcasm and didn't want my child to endure the same. When I was in school, I was bullied daily. The most common thing I heard was that I had a mother who gave birth to me but no father to raise me. They claimed my mom had me with someone else's husband. I was ostracized. And despite doing well in school, even the teachers didn't like me. Classmates who wanted to stay out of trouble avoided me. and the bullies harassed me mercilessly until Vincent stood up for me. His bravery didn't make my school life any easier. The punches aimed at me only got harder, but I still thanked him. He was the only light in my painful youth. So, I wouldn't bring a fatherless child into the world to relive my pain. Even though I had money, I feared that slim possibility. It was too painful, and the memories of those years were all painful. Chapter 20. Vincent started showing up every day. His affectionate demeanor had a touch of fragility. I didn't understand his behavior. He let Jasmine take half of his assets and return to the US. The alumni group was buzzing. The job market in China is tough. Even the school belle couldn't stay. That's a joke. You're ugly, so you can't find a job. But is by the school belle an ordinary person? She doesn't need to work. True. It's better to marry well than to work well. Jasmine didn't get married either, right? Didn't Lou leave with another woman? I heard she was also from our school. You really can't judge a book by its cover. Julianna is quite something. A bunch of criticisms about me followed. There were all sorts of nasty comments. Anyone who talks bad about my wife will have to deal with me. This was Vincent's first message after joining the group, and it caused a huge uproar. I silently left the alumni group. I have a timid personality that loves watching drama, but when the drama involves me, I shrink back. That's why I didn't dare to acknowledge my relationship with Vincent after Jasmine joined the group, and why I stayed silent. I cared, but I didn't want to say more. Chapter 21. Faith said she wanted to introduce me to a new friend. I knew it was her handsome neighbor, the cop who joked that even good news shouldn't distract me from driving. Officer Sue looked friendlier in casual clothes. Hello, Miss Cheen. His sharp features and healthy complexion made his teeth appear even whiter when he smiled. Faith sat quietly on the side, pouting. Officer Sue stood up to go to the restroom. Faith reluctantly spoke, looking mournful. Matthias said he fell in love with you at first sight and wants to get to know you. Humph. But this time, I won't let you win. I don't believe I can't compete with you. A divorced woman. I smiled at her. Sisters are like hands and feet. Men are like clothes. I won't compete with you. What? You don't like the man I picked? I'll tell you. He's a certified good man. No mistakes. Well, you used to like Vincent too. Don't mention it. Everyone has a past. Hey, your ex-husband is here. Vincent sat next to me and called the waiter to order. I didn't invite you. I'm out of money. I had never realized his face could be so thick-skinned. When Matthias returned and saw someone sitting next to me, he paused for half a second, then extended his hand and said, "You must be the impotent ex-husband. Nice to meet you." Vincent glanced at me lightly and didn't refute. He reached out to shake the hand of friendship extended by the man opposite, smiling insincerely. "Nice to meet you." Faith looked at me nervously, torn between her job and her love. She wanted both. This woman, always so righteous on my behalf, would curse Vincent more harshly than I ever could. But seeing him in person, she became a meek little wife, dutiful and obedient. I expected sparks to fly and hidden currents, but the meal turned out to be pleasant for everyone. The two men's courtesy preserved Faith's love and career. She was so happy that she generously paid the bill. Chapter 22. Vincent offered to drive me home, and I didn't refuse. Seeing Faith's feelings for Matthias, I couldn't let him think he had a chance. I'm not a kind person, but I do consider others' feelings sometimes. Julianna, let's get remarried. He gripped the steering wheel, eyes fixed ahead, looking serious, his knuckles prominent. I can't wait anymore. Too many men like you, and I'm scared. Remember that night you left? I asked you not to divorce, and you said sorry. From that moment, I decided never to look back. His face twisted with pain. I have my reasons. In Finland, you encountered an avalanche, and you were in the hospital for 2 months. Jasmine went with you, didn't she? Let me guess why you went to Finland. He didn't speak, sweat forming on his forehead. But I continued to see the aurora, your favorite. When we first got married, I suggested we go, and you refused. I never brought it up again because I knew you had your secrets. That place was off limits to me, and I didn't push. But you suggested divorce. To me, marriage is sacred. unyielding, even without love. Responsibility would keep us together, but you didn't even want your own child. He slammed the brakes and grabbed my hand, wanting to say something. There were few cars at night, so he stopped in the middle of the road without concern. Headlights approached, and a large truck crashed into us. In the chaos, he shielded me with his body. Chapter 23. When I woke up, there was a woman sitting by my bed. She told me that surviving a great disaster brings good fortune. Every day, she pushed me to the small garden in front of the hospital to bask in the sun. She said her name was Faith, and she was my best friend. The doctor regretfully told me that due to the car accident, I had lost the ability to become a mother. My heart felt hollow, but there was a sense of destiny, as if I had done something that made this result not entirely undeserved. The man brought in with me had a steel bar through his heart. A nurse said he must have loved me dearly to protect me so tightly. Faith said he was her boss and my ex-husband. If he loved me so much, why did he divorce me? Thinking about it gave me a headache, so I chose not to think about it. After I was discharged, it was December. I checked various travel guides and booked a ticket to Finland. I always remembered. I wanted to see the aurora.